Okay, I'm here with Congressman Steve King of Iowa, who just finished speaking at the 603 Alliance event. Congressman, you brought up something that hit me to home. I'm my own small business, and I do my own taxes. I just finished filing them this week, and the tax system has become more and more complicated. And you were talking about simplifying it. Can you elaborate?
Well, I sure can, and I've been for this for a long time. And that is that this Internal Revenue Tax Code is too big and too complicated. In order to get an argument on taxes, all you need to do is ask two tax experts for their opinion, and they can be tax attorneys, and they're still going to disagree with each other. The IRS doesn't agree with itself. We use too many of our resources complying with the federal tax code, and it can be very simple. And I'm not talking about a flat tax, I'm talking about a fair tax. And the fair tax is a national retail sales tax, a consumption tax on personal items that are purchased for personal consumption. Because after all, corporations don't pay taxes, they pass that along to individuals. They aggregate those taxes through the prices of the things that they sell and file their taxes. It's people and individuals that pay taxes. So for this to be simple, it's this. With the passage of the fair tax, everybody gets an average of 56% more in their paycheck. We replace the payroll tax of all the Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid taxes. We replace the income tax, the estate tax, the death tax, capital gains, interest income, dividend income. All of that is gone, and we replace it with the national retail sales tax. And so the simplicity of this is that 44 or so states have a sales tax system already set up in place. They can collect that, and we'll pay them a stipend to administer it, and then the state sends the check into the federal government. We get our freedom back. We take all of the burden off of productivity. When tax is a punishment. Ronald Reagan once said that what we tax we get less of. He also said what we subsidize we get more of. What we tax we get less of, well, we get less productivity because we tax/punish the productivity. This ends all of that tax, and it puts America back in a competitive economy for the world again. And it's this way. An average of 22% of the cost of the things we buy are the embedded federal tax in there. If you have a $1 cup of coffee, and in this $1 cup of coffee, there's 22 cents of federal taxes built into this, into the price of it. So we pass the fair tax. Now you've got a 78-cent cup of coffee, not a $1 cup of coffee. You'll have to pay the federal tax on it when you purchase this because this is human consumption.
Hopefully it's good human consumption. Hopefully the coffee is good.
It is personal human consumption, so you have to pay the tax on that. And that adds 23% back in, so you're back up there again to where you were. But that takes care of your tax. And every little kid growing up in America gets reminded of how expensive our federal government is every time they pay the tax on their Skittles or their Barbie doll clothes or their baseball cards or whatever it might be. And so we raise a generation of conservatives. We tax the pimps, the prostitutes, and the pushers. Yes, we have to tax the pharmaceuticals and the Pampers. We have to tax everything because as soon as we exempt something, the next item has also merit to be exempted from tax. But in the mix of all this, with over $20 million worth of research, I will say this: the fair tax, H.R. 27, does everything good that anybody's tax proposal does that is good. It does them all. And it does them all better.
And there's one other thing. I wrote a piece earlier this week on Tax Day about taxation without understanding being as bad as taxation without representation. You talked about visiting Concord Bridge and the like. Is it oppression where the average person cannot understand the taxes they're obliged to pay in the same way that you'll have a law like Obamacare, which is 2,000 pages, and the average person can't understand that?
When you get to the point where you can't understand, and you don't think about it in terms of it being a tax, or if you get to the point where you think, well, the federal government provides my health care for me and I submit to the system, that's the psychological thing that takes away our freedom, is when you submit to a system because it's too big and too complex to understand. That's what we have today. We have people that believe that they either get money back or have to pay extra into the IRS on tax day. When my wife comes home with our tax forms, and she knows to be ready with the answer, but and I'll say, well, how did this all work out? And she's my negotiator with my tax man. And she used to say, well, we get X dollars back. And she knows now that I will always say, how much did we have to pay And that's the question. People don't think about that anymore because the tax has gotten so complex. They just think about whether they get money back or whether they have to dig deeper and pay a little more in.
And of course, with a system where you can't hide tax breaks in a system, you actually withdraw money from politics. So you would think the left would be very happy with this idea.
The left thinks it's a problem, though, because of the tax credits that have been built in, like the Earned Income Tax Credit, which is actually an unearned income tax credit, and the child tax credits that are there. You build these tax credits in to redistribute wealth. That's what the left has been doing for a long time. We end all of that with the fair tax, and people say, well, then how are we going to incent certain behavior? Well, we may not want to incent certain behavior. We may want to just live in a free society, and I'm for that. But if it's the conclusion of the people through their elected representatives to incent certain behavior, then we can go to the appropriations process and write a check. Then everybody in America will understand.
Congressman Steve King, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.